Welcome to Have You Read It? The channel where we bring books to life, one summary at a time. Whether you're here for self-help, personal growth, or business inspiration, there's something for everyone. Today we're diving into Radical Candor, Be a Kick-Ass Boss Without Losing Your Humanity by Kim Scott. This book offers a fresh, insightful, and often humorous perspective on leadership and management, providing actionable advice for building strong teams and achieving exceptional results. Let's get started. The core concept of radical candor hinges on two key dimensions: care personally and challenge directly. Scott argues that effective management isn't about being nice all the time, nor is it about being a ruthless dictator. It's about genuinely caring about the people you work with as human beings, while also being willing to challenge them directly when their work isn't up to par, or when they need a push in the right direction. Scott draws on her extensive experience in Silicon Valley, working at companies like Google and Apple, to illustrate her points. She recounts a pivotal moment early in her career when, as a new manager, she struggled to criticize an employee whose work was consistently subpar. She liked the employee and worried about hurting his feelings, so she offered empty praise instead of constructive criticism. This ruinous empathy, as Scott calls it, ultimately harmed both the employee and the team. He continued to underperform, and the team's morale and productivity suffered. This experience taught her a valuable lesson. It's kinder in the long run to be direct, even if it causes some momentary discomfort. The book isn't just about criticism, though. Scott emphasizes the importance of radically candid praise, which is just as crucial for building trust and motivating teams. She highlights the importance of specific, sincere praise that goes beyond generic platitudes like, "good job." She uses an example of praising a colleague for coaching Little League. Her initial praise felt insincere, so she followed up with more specific personal praise, highlighting why she admired his dedication to coaching and how it positively influenced her own thinking about work-life integration. Scott introduces a framework that helps visualize the 4 quadrants of feedback: radical candor, ruinous empathy, obnoxious aggression, and manipulative insincerity. Radical candor, as we've discussed, is the sweet spot. Ruinous empathy occurs when you care personally but fail to challenge directly. Obnoxious aggression is when you challenge directly but don't care personally. And manipulative insincerity is the worst of both worlds. You neither care personally nor challenge directly. The book stresses the importance of getting feedback, as well as giving it. Scott argues that soliciting criticism from your team is essential for building trust and improving your own performance. She recommends a go-to question: is there anything I could do or stop doing that would make it easier to work with me? She acknowledges the discomfort this question can create, but encourages managers to embrace it and persist until they receive a genuine response. She also emphasizes rewarding criticism, showing your team that you value their candor. For example, when a colleague pointed out that she interrupted too much, she asked him to snap a rubber band on her wrist every time she interrupted. This playful approach acknowledged the criticism, encouraged others to do the same, and helped her improve. Beyond guidance, Radical Candor explores team building and achieving results. Scott introduces the concept of growth management, which involves understanding each team member's individual growth trajectory and aligning it with the needs of the team. She differentiates between rock stars, who are excellent performers content in their current roles, and superstars, who are constantly seeking new challenges and growth opportunities. She stresses the importance of recognizing and rewarding both types of employees, avoiding the common pitfall of promoting rock stars into management positions they don't want or aren't suited for. She also emphasizes the importance of continually challenging superstars, providing them with opportunities to learn and grow. She advises managers to have regular career conversations with their direct reports, exploring their life stories, dreams, and 18-month plans to better understand their motivations and help them achieve their goals. When it comes to achieving results, Scott argues for a collaborative approach. She introduces the Get Stuff Done wheel, a framework for achieving results without resorting to top-down directives. The GSD wheel involves 6 steps: listen, clarify, debate, decide, persuade, and execute, followed by learning from the results and starting the cycle anew. Scott draws on her experience at Google, where she initially struggled to implement changes due to her overly directive approach. She learned the hard way that telling people what to do, even when the changes seemed obviously necessary, didn't work. She had to adopt a more collaborative approach, listening to her team's concerns, clarifying their thinking, and engaging them in the decision-making process. Scott also shares insights from her time at Apple, contrasting the cultures of Google and Apple. She notes that while Google emphasized a more collaborative, bottom-up approach, Apple had a stronger focus on challenging authority, even Steve Jobs. She tells a story of a colleague who learned to argue his points forcefully with Jobs, even when Jobs initially disagreed. When events proved the colleague right, Jobs acknowledged the importance of being challenged, saying, "It was your job to convince me I was wrong and you failed." This illustrates Apple's emphasis on getting to the right answer, even if it meant challenging the boss. Scott dedicates a significant portion of the book to practical tools and techniques. She provides detailed advice on how to run effective one-on-one meetings, staff meetings, and big debate meetings, emphasizing the importance of clear agendas, efficient time management, and creating a space for open communication. She also discusses the importance of think time, encouraging managers to block off time for focused thinking and problem solving. She introduces the concept of management fix-it weeks, during which managers focus on resolving annoying management issues raised by their teams. She also advocates for visualizing workflows using Kanban boards, a technique borrowed from Toyota, to improve team efficiency and collaboration. The book also addresses the challenges of navigating workplace politics, firing employees, and giving performance reviews. Scott encourages managers to be direct and compassionate when firing someone, remembering that it's not the person who sucks, but the job that sucks for that person. She advises managers to get advice from their boss and HR, document the process carefully, and give a damn about the person being fired. When giving performance reviews, she stresses the importance of no surprises, soliciting feedback on your own performance first, and writing the review down. She recommends spending half the time looking back and half the time looking forward. Scott also touches on the complexities of gender and guidance, noting that gender bias can make it difficult for women to be radically candid. She discusses the abrasive trap, in which competent women are often perceived as too aggressive, while men exhibiting similar behaviors are seen as assertive. She encourages men to be mindful of this bias and to avoid pulling punches when giving feedback to women. She also encourages women to demand criticism and to be mindful of their own behaviors, avoiding the trap of being overly empathetic or self-abnegating to be liked. Scott concludes the book by emphasizing the importance of being mindful of the culture you're creating as a leader. She notes that people are constantly watching you, and your actions, even seemingly small ones, can have a significant impact on your team's culture. She encourages leaders to be vigilant about clarifying their communications, to debate and decide explicitly on important cultural issues, and to learn from their mistakes. She shares a story of moving a misplaced couch in the office, which sparked a team tradition of moving couches and symbolized a focus on taking initiative and fixing problems, even small ones. So, what are the key takeaways from Radical Candor? The main takeaway is that to be a great boss, you must care personally and challenge directly. This means getting to know the people who work for you as human beings, understanding their motivations and aspirations, and being willing to give them both praise and criticism in a way that's clear, direct, and helpful. It also means creating a culture of open communication, where people feel comfortable sharing their ideas, challenging authority, and learning from their mistakes. It's not about being nice all the time or being a jerk all the time. It's about finding the sweet spot of radical candor. Here are some easy-to-remember heuristics. Go-to question for soliciting feedback. Is there anything I could do or stop doing that would make it easier to work with me? For giving feedback, Use the situation behavior impact framework to avoid personalizing criticism. For team building, remember the rock stars and superstars and tailor your approach to each. For achieving results, use the GSD wheel. Listen, clarify, debate, decide, persuade, execute, learn. For building culture, be mindful of your actions. They speak louder than words. Thanks for watching. Have you read it? Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you never miss our next book dive.